In this video I will talk about socks, 2 pairs of socks. I will talk about the MIKO Hood by Susanne Müller, lots and lots of neck warmers, and the Hannah sweater v-neck by PetiteKnit. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nana and I like to knit according to patterns, and I also like to self-draft some knitwear. Today there will be both. And I knitted a lot in the month of January. It was very snowy, it was cold, and I guess for many people January, February are the most knitting intense months of the year. And I think what I'll do in the future is to post monthly videos of what I made in those months. And I will talk about knitting, maybe sewing, my artwork, and to have like a roundup. I think a monthly posting rhythm is something that I can achieve and maintain. And besides those updates about what I'm working on, I will then maybe insert some more specified videos. But let's get into my finished objects knitting wise for the month of January. And the first finished object was actually socks again, self-drafted. These green socks, sneaker height, and that's just because I thrifted the yarn and I didn't have more of it. So I would normally prefer woolen socks to be longer in the leg, but this is how much I got out of the 2 bolts of yarn that I had. And I still think they are really beautiful. I used a 2x2 broken rib, which creates this nice waffle structure knit. And for the heels I added again lino Mika, which is a 100% linen yarn. I bound off with the 1x1 ribbing and Rook's bind off as per usual. And this time I used a toe up technique. Normally I knitted my socks calf down, but here I cast it on, stitches with Judy's magic cast on, and then knitted until I had half of my yarn used up, and then I used the second half for the other socks. So it's the perfect way how to use all the yarn you have and don't have any leftovers. And then I inserted an afterthought heel, or also it's called peasant heel, I think. And you cut into what you knitted. You knit the tube up, cut into the knitting, and insert the heel like a normal toe. Actually, it just increases here, and I'm a big fan, I must say. It's really convenient and it's also comfy. I think if you insert a couple of rounds before you start the decreases, so that gives the heel more depth. I think that's super handy, and I will do it again, I guess. So yeah, these are like dark olive green socks. Oh yeah, this is superwash yarn. It's 100% merino, but superwash, and I never use superwash wool or yarn for socks, so I can throw these in the washing machine. Let's see. So far, like from what it felt like when I was working with it, I wasn't thrilled. Yeah, but maybe let's see how they were. I haven't worn them yet because I wanted to show them to you in this nicely blocked way. You've seen enough worn socks by me. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to trying them out. Then the next pair of socks was also from thrifted yarn, and I thrifted this bowl of yarn. It was wound up in a round bowl and it had some beige color, and it was together in a sealed plastic bag with some other yarns that all looked like natural colors, natural fibers yarn. But this bowl of yarn, when I started knitting with it, the color started changing. So I thought, oh, okay, this is not a beige yarn. And it also didn't feel like a natural fiber, more like acrylic. But I thought that's actually good for socks. And I also tried or wanted to do a toe up sock, which I did. And the color was really changing in all types of colors from the rainbow. And when I reached the cuff of one sock, I wanted the color to spill over into the other sock. That's why the second sock I knitted top down. And that's the joy of teaching yourself all those knitting techniques, because it gives you the freedom to improvise and combine the different techniques according to the situation. Yeah, so the second one I knitted downwards, and then I inserted the heels afterwards as well, like with the afterthought heel method. And yeah, the colors are actually really beautiful. I think these socks are super nice. I knitted them on 2.5mm needles. I don't know what yarn it was. There was no tag on it, and I wanted to give them to a dear friend of mine, and she was thrilled. So she absolutely loves them. So that was a very successful gift knit. Yes, and as my next knit, I wanted to have a hood. Like everyone is wearing knitted hoods these days. And yeah, I was looking for a pattern that I liked, and I chose the Mika Hood by Susanne Müller. I like that it is knitted this way. Normally the hoods are knitted from top down somehow, but here the rows go like horizontally to the back. It's knitted in stockinette stitch, and the naturally occurring rolled edge that happens when you knit in stockinette stitch without ribbing, she uses that as a design feature of this hood, which I really like. And I also like that it is knitted up in a bulky or super bulky gauge. I have to check again. So I thought I need something for instant gratification because I knitted so many socks on a tiny gauge. I wanted to have the complete opposite and to have a knit that I can finish very fast. Yeah, I realized, or I noticed, that I wanted a yarn that creates a very stiff fabric. So I wanted this large gauge, but a yarn that still is very dense. I wanted the hood to have some sort of shape by itself and don't hang or dangle down from my head like a plastic bag or tote bag. I wanted it to have some stiffness in itself, and also that it looked quite natural, a bit fuzzy with a natural halo to it. So I knew I wanted to go for a very woolly yarn, rustic yarn. I'm not super sensitive on my neck, and I thought I'd give it a try. Normally I have like a thin turtleneck under my sweater anyway, so that my skin on my neck is covered. And I decided to use Rauma Wams, and I held it double. And this is my hood. And yeah, you have the rolled edges. She suggests 2 or 3 different types of neck that you can do. You can also use a ribbed neck part here, but I chose the stockinette set with a rolled edge, and here you also have the rolled edge. And I think it's a success. I'll put it on. Oh. So this is what it looks like. I like that the opening for the face is not too large. Sometimes you have like you know, it comes down to here, but I wanted this to be quite high up. Yeah, this is what it looks like. I can also insert some B-roll. I'm very happy with the color, and I'm very happy with the fit. The only modification that I did was I knitted it 2 to 3 centimeters deeper here. Because when I wear my hair down, it is actually a bit too deep. It would come down like this, if I want to go undercover, maybe. But this would annoy me. But 90% of the time I have my hair up in a bun or in a clip, and then I need this extra space, and it fits perfectly. And it, you know, if it was shorter, it would sit like here, but I want like full protection. And yeah, so this is my Mika hood, and other than that modification of knitting it a bit larger is that I tucked in the tip here. If you see, there is some sort of like seaming going on. If you look on the inside, I haven't woven in the ends because why? Here, this little bit. I stitched it together here because it would have been on the outside, and then it would have looked a bit more like a gnome's or a dwarf's head, and I didn't want that. And yeah, so it's knitted this direction from both sides, and then stitched together here with the Kitchener stitch. And I really like the color, if you can see it. So this yarn has like a natural speckledness in it, like oats, and I really like that. And I wear it mostly over a headband, And I also like to wear it over big headphones, and my head looks gigantic with it. But I think it's also somehow cool. I don't know, I like the vibe. I embrace the vibe. And yeah, I knitted this in one weekend and I've worn it already so much, and I love when finished knitted objects directly go into application and improve my life. And this is the case for this one, definitely. And I also don't think that the yarn is too itchy or scratchy. It works for me. So this turned out exactly like I wanted it to. Success. Yes, then my next finished object for the month of January was my dad's neck warmer. In previous videos I told you that I wanted to knit a scrappy version of the terrazzo neck by PetiteKnit. I have the pattern, I knitted it before, but I wanted a neck warmer for my dad, so I didn't want all the fanciness of that pattern. And in the end what I did was a remotely terrazzo neck inspired neck warmer, but I actually didn't follow the pattern at all. So there is nothing fancy, no twisted ribbing, no Italian cast on bind off, ordinary cast on bind off, ordinary ribbing, and it's much shorter. And I also didn't put this huge turtleneck, which is outward folded. I made a much shorter one that is folded to the inside and sewn down. I used single bolts of yarn that I still had in my stash, and I absolutely adore this neck warmer. I was like, should I really give this away? I really like it. First of all, I think it is a style to have it that short, but still quite broad, like quite wide over the shoulders. And the color combination is, I am such a big fan of it. Unexpectedly beautiful, in my opinion. I love the combination of this warm light gray, this almost grayish, beige-ish gray of the, that's the Heavy Merino by Knitting for Olive in the color Nordic Beach, and this cool dark gray. Unfortunately, I don't know what yarn this was, but already these two yarns together are like so good. And then I included a burgundy and the alpaca Folgedraht by Sandnes Garn in this light gray throughout most of the sections, and in the back there's some alpaca wool by Sandnes Garn in beige. And it is super soft around the neck, and yeah, it's a look, I would say. I could use up some scraps, which is really nice, and my dad was very happy about it, so I'm happy that I gave it to him and didn't keep it. Yes, that was my terrazzo neck inspired neck warmer, and I'm actually thinking about knitting something like this for myself as well. Although unfortunately I don't have those specific yarns anymore, but maybe in different colors. Okay, then my sweater, my finished sweater for the month of January. This is the Hannah Sweater V-neck by PetiteKnit. Yes, I know, again, PetiteKnit, but she's my comfort designer. If I want to have a rather mindless knitting project, I normally resort to her patterns because I'm used to them. I know what I get. But with this pattern, I had actually two issues. Construction-wise, normally I know that behind PetiteKnit patterns, there's solid knitwear design craftsmanship behind it. But here I had actually two issues I will tell you about in a second. So first, when the pattern came out, I know I wanted to knit it. I think this panel, this V-neck panel, is super beautiful with the high V-neck. So actually it finishes like a crew neck, as high as a crew neck. And I'm not a V-neck person in general, but this somehow works for me, and it has this retro chic, I don't know what it is, 80s, 90s? Yeah, so I knew I wanted to try out this design. And I also knew that I wanted to try out a different yarn. So she uses Atlas by Sandnes Garn, which I think is a new yarn by that brand. But in 2026, my goal is to try out different yarns, because I'm a creature of habit. I like what I'm used to, because then I know what I get, I know the gauge, I know the wear, everything. But that also obviously bears the risk that I miss out on other beautiful yarns. And I wanted to try more woolly yarns that already feel warm to the touch. And here I chose Rauma Fivel. So this is like a thinner version almost of the Vamps by Rauma. DK weight. And I even had to size down my needle. This is normally knitted on 4mm needles. I had to size down to 3.5mm needles. I sloppily gauge swatched. I gauge swatched, but in the end my gauge was still different. And I noticed when I knitted the back panel, and when I reached the full width, I thought, oh, this looks too wide. And then I did a very mature thing and unraveled. Normally I think it will be fine. But here I really wanted the sweater to look like it is on the pictures. And yeah, I think it was good that I unraveled this almost 25 centimeters of knitting. And I sized down to 3.5mm needles. And yeah, it took me really a while to knit this thing. It is not a fast knit. And it features these beautiful 2x2 cuffs, as per usual, bound off in Italian bind off. And in the end you pick up stitches for this neck. So my points of criticism, I would say, but not really critical, you know, like the first one is really minor, and that's the arms or the shoulder construction. Because you knit the back panel, then you knit the shoulders, and then you pick up stitches around the armholes for the arms. That's a typical PetiteKnit construction. And here you see that you have this tiny edge, this tiny corner. And because I knitted sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear twice before, I should have paid attention to this before. Only when I knitted the sleeve, I thought like, okay, maybe I should have jumped in here and applied my own power of thinking. Yeah, but I just followed the pattern. And she here in the PetiteKnit pattern, she just wants you to knit in the round. You pick up stitches, that's it. In the My Favorite Things Knitwear pattern, she includes short rows here to fill up this small corner, which somehow makes more sense to me, you know? Because when I knitted the sleeve about this much, you could still see that it was pulled up, so that it was not like a straight opening, but more pulled up on the upper side. But this effect is cancelled out over the length of the sweater. You can only see it here when you zoom in, that these rows are pulled towards this corner, into this corner a bit. And yeah, it's totally fine when the sleeves are knitted. You won't see anything of it anymore. It's just the fact that it feels a little bit more tailored to me, the way it is done in the My Favorite Things Knitwear pattern. Every time something is pulled in a weird way in a knitted construction, I don't know, I think it could be improved. But yeah, obviously this is more beginner friendly, because you don't have to teach yourself how to do German short rows. So this is a more beginner friendly pattern, and it also works. So yeah. And the second thing, actually more major to me, is this front panel, and I don't get it, people. I don't get it. To me it feels a bit like applied mathematical nonsense. I don't know, because you have the back panel, and you can, so I don't think I am revealing here any secrets of the pattern, because you can see it when you look at the pictures, that you start the increases for the V already here on the shoulder. Often V-necks are knitted in a way that you knit over the shoulders and then you start the V. But here the V already starts at the back of the neck. That's why it comes up so high and creates this very nice feature, actually. However, this panel is really wide, and if you have a triangle and try to place a ribbon inside it, shouldn't you make decreases in each corner so that it becomes plain with the rest of the thing? Do you know what I mean? So I first knitted the neck a bit shorter, maybe 2 centimeters shorter, and I already thought like, I don't want it to stand up too much, because on some pictures of people knitting it, you can see that this neck is coming up quite a bit, and I don't want it to be some sort of a mock neck or anything. So I stopped and I bound off, too early of course, and then I was like, no, actually I chose this pattern because of this white V-neck panel. You can already see on her sample picture, and you can also see it here, that the back is coming up a bit. Because also the back panel, it doesn't decrease in the back, you know, where then this V-neck panel is attached. It is as high as it normally is. So naturally, this thing comes up here. Still, I wanted this not to have too much fabric here in these corners. That's why I unraveled almost the whole thing and inserted decreases here. I will insert a B-roll where you can see it better. I didn't decrease as often as for the front. I actually decreased with half the rate, and I think it worked out very well. To me, I don't mind the look of it. I think it still looks neat, and I think it works now much better because I got rid of too much excess fabric here in these corners. And now it works, and I knitted it as high as she suggests in the pattern, and now I'm fine with it. I'm still a bit skeptical of like what this will look like in the future when I've worn the sweater more often, but so far it looks good to me. Yes, so that's, yeah. And also like on the project pictures of the different knitters on Ravelry, you can see that for half of them it works just perfectly fine, and for half of them it looks, yeah, this comes up too much. And maybe it's intended like this, you know, maybe I just don't get the design. Fair enough. So if people are happy with it, okay. Yeah, but I think I could figure out how to improve it for myself so that I'm happy with it. And otherwise, I think it's such a beautiful sweater. I mean, the length for me is perfect, the width, the ease. And this is one of the few sweaters I don't feel tempted to tuck it into my pants to give it some more shape or like to make it look good. This just works as it is. So I'm very happy that I chose this pattern. So far I'm also happy with the yarn choice, although it starts pilling already a bit. I guess it will pill more than the PetiteKnit, but let's see. And yeah, so, and I love the red. I've wanted to have a red sweater for so long. And yeah, I knitted the Eva cardigan by PetiteKnit in Poppy, which is a very bright, light red. And yeah, but in the end I gave that to my mom, and so I didn't have any red sweater, which is unusual for me because red is my favorite color when it comes to sweaters and tops. And this red looks very Christmassy, but it also looks different depending on the line, and it has a tad of orange in it, which I very much like. Yeah, I'm happy I chose it. So this is my Hannah sweater V-neck by PetiteKnit, and I will put all this information on Ravelry, so if you consider knitting it, maybe it is of help. Then, because this whole neck warmer topic really has caught my attention for quite a while, because when I started knitting, and you know, I think it's true for a lot of people, when you start knitting, you buy a single ball of yarn here, a single skein of yarn there, and then in the end you have too many single skeins and don't know what to do with it. And I used some of them to knit neck warmers for all the men in my family. There's plenty of men in my family. I have 2 brothers, my dad and my partner, and it's always tricky what to give to them. And I knitted neck warmers, self-drafted ones, for my dad and my partner, and they've been loving them and wearing them like all the time. And when I knitted this terrazzo neck inspired neck warmer for my dad, I thought this is actually too large, and yeah, he was happy about it. I think he will wear it, but it is not what I think is most useful for men and people in general. I also like to wear what I'm about to show you, because what I think is super useful for them is something that you can tuck under your sweatshirt or shirt and wear it as just a turtleneck. And not as a scarf replacement, but as something that provides warmth throughout the day, but also at night. I know they like to wear it also at night, especially also when you go camping, van life. Winter season is sore throat season, and I know that these things have been very useful for them. And that's why I wanted to improve what I made when I started knitting and had not so much knowledge about different knitting techniques. And I thought maybe I can use that to really write up a pattern. And that's what I did. So I now knitted here many sample pieces already. I think 3, 4, 5. I knitted 6 so far. I gave already one to my brother. And I wanted to write the pattern so that one ball of yarn will be enough. Because I think that's the perfect gift knit idea, to have something small. One ball is enough. You don't end up with having 1 ball and a quarter and then 3/4 of yarn left again. And something that knits up rather quickly on a rather big gauge. Not too big, but still big. And I know that blown yarns, especially Camarose's Snefnook, feels very soft to the skin, and that most people are tolerant to that yarn, so I use that for the pattern. And this is what I came up with. It's a double folded short turtleneck for size LXL. And I chose this height because this is what you can get out of 1 ball of yarn. But obviously if you choose a smaller size, you can make this turtleneck a little bit higher, or if you want to combine it with a different yarn and patch up things, then it's totally up to you. But for example, my partner, he likes a shorter turtleneck. Yeah, he has a beard and he doesn't want this yarn to be caught in his beard all the time. So yeah, a shorter one is better for him. And then it has like a short body shoulder section with raglan increases. And you bind off the short ribbing sections with an Italian bind off. And yeah, I think it is very useful, and I wouldn't rave about it so much if I didn't know people already who wear this a lot. And yeah, so there are size L, XL, SM and XS. XS looks already a bit shorter, or like a bit more narrow. Here I knitted this longer because I had more yarn. This is this beautiful lime green color, which I love so much. I think I will give that to my sister-in-law. She's quite small, but this could also be good for a kid, for a child. And yeah, the size M. I wanted to knit that for myself. I knitted it, blocked it, washed it, and wanted to dry it fast. I was very impatient and put it on the radiator, and I didn't pay attention to how hot it was because it was so cold outside, and it shrank a bit. But it still works. It still, it still fits me. But I just can't use this for the pictures, for the pattern. At the moment, a friend of mine is testing it, but if you would like to test knit it, I think a couple of more people would be good. Please drop me an email and I'll send you the pattern. The email address, you can find it on my website, which is linked in the bio or in the video description. Yeah, so nice. And I'm currently thinking of including more gauges so that people can really use it to use up whatever yarn they have left in their stash and want to use up, because this is now very Snefnook centric. Yeah, because for example, I tried a fingering weight version with the Merino by Knitting for Olive, which I think is absolutely beautiful, and it works so nicely. However, you knit much longer on it. I'm also thinking of using even a more sophisticated technique for this one. For example, to use Judy's Magic Cast On and then combine the stitches down here. So I might write another pattern for a fingering weight one. Maybe I will then also include twisted ribbing. I don't know yet. So far the pattern includes larger gauges, but I think a fingering weight is more elegant. This is coming out very soon. If you want to test it, please drop me an email. And yeah, so I'm very happy with these small neck warmers. And then what I've been up to in the month of January was a lot of artwork. I told you before that I wanted to reopen my shop, and I finally put out my clip art designs. I have to show you an example, it's super cute, hang on. Yes, I wanted to test print a floral frame of Helleborus flowers, and I used an example like a birthday invitation. I don't know, this is a fake person, I just used a random name, and I accidentally put the printer settings wrong, so it came out too small, but I think it looks really nice. It's somehow adorable and it works very well with the size of the paper. I think it's so delicate and elegant. You can buy it. Downloaded it from my Etsy shop so far. Yeah. And I also made prints. So this is going step by step ahead. Yeah. Okay, works in progress. I've been knitting neck warmers over and over, but besides that, I've also worked on the Marit mittens by Scandia Knits. And inspired by Florence Miller and Caffeinated Granny, I chose inverted colors. And I'm almost done with the second one. I'm using Pergint in cacao nibs and a light beige. And I'm not experienced in colorwork knitting, as you can see. The only time I knitted something in colorwork was the Selene sweater by Anne Wenzel, but that was like really like big, bold patterns. So this is the first time where I knit something with like one stitch here, one stitch there, and I'm not good at it. Like my tension is like, what the fuck? It's like changing all the time. And they also turned out much too large, too long. But yeah, I want to felt them in a controlled manner. If you have experience with that, please let me know. Otherwise, I thought I just put them on and put my hands in 40 degrees water, which is not too hot, with soap, and try to felt them as long as needed and then dry them with my hands in them. Maybe that works, because I really like felted mittens, and I think it can look really nice. So far I'm already proud. Still, although I'm off gauge and although they turn out too large, I still think they're so beautiful, these flowers, and I think it's a very nice thing to have these inverted colors. It does something, I don't know, tickly to my brain, which is good, which feels good. It's nice. Yes, so this is one work in progress. And then I have another sweater project. In my yarn stash tour from last summer, I told you I have this boucle yarn still in my stash. I've had it for years, and I'm now using it for a self-drafted sweater. And I finished the body. What is lacking are the sleeves. So this is now turned inside out because I will use the purl side for the outside, because it looks more fuzzy than the knitting side. Yeah, I did a simple construction, back panel, picking up the shoulders, knitting the front panel, and so on and so forth, you know, the drill. And actually first I just wanted to knit a sweater vest, a slip over, because I thought it looked already quite good. And because of the fuzziness of the yarn, you really don't need to have any like fancy finishings like ribbing or whatever, like because the fuzziness of the yarn blurs out optically the edges. And first I wanted to leave it just like this, even without the collar. But then I thought, I bet when I attach a collar, I will think, oh, that was a good idea. And then I do the next step and I will think, oh, that was a good idea. And that was the case. I attached this double folded collar and I think it was a good idea. Because you can't even see where it was attached. So that's super fascinating and nice. Obviously, boucle yarn is a nightmare to knit with. But yeah, I also don't know if I will do it again. But since I have this yarn, I think, yeah, it's fine for now. I only have the sleeves to go. It is rather cropped and it is oversized. I have to measure the amount of ease, but I think for this design, the cropped fit goes very well. And the problem why I stopped knitting here were the sleeves, because I thought I wanted to make a slip over, I left the opening for the arms really large, because I don't like to have too narrow or too fitted armhole openings. And now when I wanted to pick up the stitches for the sleeves, and I knitted already half of the sleeve, I could see that this was eating up too much yarn and I was afraid I won't have enough. And there was also then too much fabric here. So I unraveled it and I will now need to find a way how to make this armhole smaller in diameter. And I think what I will do is I will pick up stitches all around and then make short rows here to fill up the space and then knit the arms, the sleeves. I think that could work. Yeah, but for the February makes, you can already look forward to having the Marat mittens and the sweater. I think I will finish it this month. That's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that was a lot of knitting. For me, I'm not a fast knitter, so for me that was a lot of knitting. Yes. Amy is sleeping next to me on the sofa. And with all the things going on in the world outside, fascists doing fascist things, please my US American followers know that I'm thinking of you. And here in Europe, people actually don't say like, oh, look what's going on in the US and it's so bad for them. Luckily we are safe here. We will get there soon enough, really. Here in Germany we have a conservative party ruling and our chancellor is like, he's just copying right-wing rhetoric and implementing things that the far right is actually demanding. So they are kind of like copying already the whole thing, and also here the trajectory unfortunately is not into a good direction. Yes, and but as one of my very wise followers once commented on my first knitting podcast episode, was using knitting as a way to be in this world instead of hiding away from this world. And I think that was super on point, because we have this wonderful craft and we can use it as a tool to build up resilience and to unwind, to calm down, so that we can regain strength to go out there and resist the bullshit that's going on and organize. And yeah, I think civil resistance is key. That's why. Thank you for watching and keep on fighting fascism. Bye bye.